Good afternoon. In the interest of respecting your time and our presenters' time and a cocktail hour to come, we're going to showcase two organizations, Liberty Mutual and Mitre Corporation. We have Brett Caldon from Liberty Mutual. He is part of their software innovation group and is responsible for leading the IT team. And he has over 20 years of experience in software architecture, design, and strategy. And he's going to be showing us what they did at Liberty Mutual. And Marsha Nunes is at Mitre Corporation, and she's part of the user experience team. And I'm actually going to have Rebecca Rodgers from Step 2 do a further introduction because both of these companies are award winners.
I'm not going to take up too much time because I know you're here to see our award winners. So I'm Rebecca Rodgers from Step 2. We, every year now for 12 years, those of you that weren't up early enough this morning to see the presentation, we recognise pockets of innovation in organisations. So we don't actually think anyone has the perfect intranet or perfect digital workplace. So for those of you out there starting going, phew, you can still win an award. So we believe that you should start small and deliver often. And the two winners this afternoon haven't necessarily started so small, but I'm looking forward to seeing them deliver again and again, as Mitre have that we recognised this morning, that now they're in our Hall of Fame. Because they have continually delivered real business benefit. So I'm now going to hand over, and if you'd like to hear more about the awards, I have a discount code for you that you can get the report at 20% off. So you can come and see me for that at the end.
Yeah, thank you. Stand up. Everybody hear me okay? All right. Brett Caldon, thanks for having me here. I'm going to go through a little bit of the background too, speaking on less about sort of Intranet, but more about emerging technologies and digital assistance capabilities in the workplace and what we've done at Liberty Mutual. So, our journey. This goes back to being much like this. No different than most journeys here. We were back in the early 2000s and we started to see. Is that better? Okay, all right. All right, sorry about that. All right, so our journey, much like everybody else's, starts with every other technology coming in the early 2000s. We start to see productivity suites like Microsoft, the Office suite. The internet becomes a thing, right? It starts bleeding its way into the enterprise, which results in sort of the early days of the intranet, if you will, and trying to, the knowledge management aspects of bringing things into that employee-related portal. I'll skip through some of this because the progression into the digital assistance place is really on the heels of not only this early intranet piece, where you're starting to see, like I said, the email piece, but as technology becomes a little more pervasive and we start to see the emergence of mobile, social, cloud, big data analytics coming into the workplace. And it's kind of what we're at today. We've got a lot of systems in the workplace. Certainly, this is kind of what our employees felt. And much like most companies, we buy systems and we implement them across the enterprise because they do exactly what we need them to do to support the business, but they're all bought within silos within the organization. So you've got a treasury system, travel system, HR, 6 different management systems for project, for X, Y, Z, right? So that topography is just very complex and at some levels very frustrating for the employee at the lower level to navigate and actually be effective. So this was a pain point we were feeling, and it was our employee opinion surveys for years that were like, man, our systems are way too complex, really low score. Wow, our processes are really complex, really low score. So we really were trying to figure out how we solve this problem in a new way and try to beat these complexity points, which is really what was happening for our employees as we took a step back and tried to work it backward from their view. Email, way oversaturated as we started to see more and more of these systems be their direct channel of communication. Delayed approvals, we had bad behavior being bred in the enterprise because our managers would, because email notifications for approvals were an email, they had to dig through them, they had to log into 12 different systems, know the passwords, blah, 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 17 screens deep to press one button that they wanted to press. They would schedule time on a Friday and try to do it all at once, but that poor guy on Monday who's been waiting for system access for 5 days really impacts their job. So it was breeding bad behavior. It was obviously a lot of time wasted context switching. So the disconnected corporate systems, and we even had a bad reputation from an IT perspective because every time we rolled out a new system, it was like, great, another place to go. So a lot of ignored content and just overly complex. In our taxonomy, too, over time, merger acquisition, probably no different than most of your companies, starts to get stale, starts to get redundant, and starts to make the problem even worse. This quote I like because this is actually old, a couple years old, but 90% of the data in the world has been created in the last 2 years. And that's 2 years old, so was that doubled since then? And it's not going to stop. So when we look at this problem saying, the data in the organization, certainly as we expand the system topography, is always getting worse. So the opportunity to enable this for the employee is not going to be about the data that we have in the organization. It's going to be out how we filter it. So we said this, imagine that you had your own personal digital assistant. It could do whatever you needed to do, tell you what you needed to do, when you needed to know it, and what you needed to do. And it was personalized to you. My digital assistant does not look like yours or yours or yours. It was really taking advantage of all the data that we already have about the employee within the enterprise and using that as a profile engine to drive much more contextual value for our employees. So from 100 different places to go, to a central digital hub, but also embedding this digital workplace everywhere. So it lives on the intranet, it can live on a sales portal, it can live on more persona-driven things that you're in every day. So try to make a 360 view for that employee and have it be at least extensible as much as possible to provide that over a large enterprise that has a ton of different personas. And at the time, this was 2013, right? So we were starting to really say, let's early onset of design thinking, and I think you guys have probably heard a lot of people mention design thinking throughout the conference, but really critical to say, let's not be the guys at the top buying a system when we don't know what these guys at the bottom are doing, because we're just making the problem worse. So as we really tried to understand what those pain points were and those moments of truth, where we can save a minute here, 3 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and have that aggregate, it would make the experience driven by the employee. In early onset, really, I think Rebecca mentioned it, right? Start small and build on it, which really brought in the agile processes for us early in this. I'm still waiting for this to click. Yep. So design thinking plus a lean concept in agile, continuous delivery was really our approach to building out this capability and deploying it to our employees. All right, so in 2014, we did a lot of the early prototypes. We actually prototyped stuff before it was even built and sold it to our executives as it was real. And we knew we kind of hit the mark when we put this out in front of them. Like, well, give me the link to this? Like, well, it's not built yet. But we were on the right track of understanding what it was that our employees resonated with our employees and what was going to get us backed by our executives. I'm going to show a quick video here of that early prototype, and then you'll see kind of what we implemented following. That was no volume. What's that?
Deep in thought? Or
Yes, he's just waiting for this digital assistant. I'm putting a lot of pressure on Dave over here.
Where'd the mouse go?
We can skip back to this if it's.
Got it.
Should I move on? It should be the volume on the actual machine, I think. All right, I'll keep going. We'll get back to this if I can. I'll see if it moves on. Oh, yeah. So we rolled it out. Started small again, really looking at personas. 5,000 managers got it first. And then we rolled this out to the 50,000 employees shortly after. And what you're seeing here is just some of the feedback. One of the critical things we did up front was build feedback into the application, because it did two things. We were listening, for one, and two, it drove the priority of what we implemented next on the platform, and it was driven by the employee. So as we were incrementally releasing capabilities, we were asking for, what else do you want? And as we continued to incrementally roll those out, and play that in the strategy as far as how we were engaging the employees, it was a delighter for them because they were starting to see us listen to them. But that word bubble on the left down there, that's actually taken from 3 years of sentiment analysis on the platform, and the number one word was love. And we were like, nobody loves enterprise software. So we were like, holy crap. Ton of benefits on the backside of this, bringing that consumer-like experience to the enterprise. Our internal comms increased substantially, the penetration on those, and it was because the personalization integrated with the intranet now drove traffic there, because all they were doing before was to go find links to jump off. But now that we put the personalized information, it gave our internal comms group a lot more penetration on some of the corporate communications and things that they were hoping they would see. And some benefits that came on the other side, once we abstracted away from all those systems and built a unified employee experience layer on top, we started to see that our IT system teams were able to make some strategic decisions on which systems to buy. You remember back in the day, and most of your systems are, let's buy 100% of a system, use 60, struggle with 40, but you always bought the big ERP package. Now with the cloud options, you'll be able to find pointed solutions, and much easier to plug and play when you don't have to do change management on that larger employee population. Ton fewer clicks, huge adoption rate. If we took it away today, it'd be mayhem. I mean, it gives capabilities for aggregating things like approvals in one spot, mobile. Our executives would not allow it. I mean, they're doing these things on the train now and in the elevator. And I'll show you the system in a minute. But where we're headed now, where we're at, is what we call the intelligent workplace, which is a little forward thinking and starting to say, great, we have all these digital tools, we can put them together. Now how do we make them smarter? And how do we use the things like AI, innovation, the Internet of Things, and build workplace hubs that actually now not only just bring the systems together, but take better advantage of the data to make those systems even more effective. I'll skip through this because this has been beaten down here in this conference if you've been paying attention. Employee experience as it relates to customer experience and the big switch there, and now where we're starting to see the trends go. Real lot of industry focus on this and the differentiators it's going to have with technology married with that employee experience as it relates to the younger generation of employees coming up. So it's going to be about attracting and retaining talent just as much as it is the employees that you have already in place. So how it works. So what this does is it is a platform that we built that sits in between. It's an employee experience fabric, if you will, that is listening for events across the top of the system, but bouncing that against the data that you have about your employees in a profile perspective to filter it down and provide them context, some personalization aspects of this, and their preferences. So they're getting what's important to them through all the noise. But there's two sides to that. Those are event-driven. So when you have things like, I got an expense in the system, it'll shoot that out to you. But there's also the things that you want to pull, that you want to ask for. So we implemented a conversational hub that allows you to not only ask for things, but to be able to transact and ask for things within the boundaries of intent. In this example here, if you're stuck in the airport on a Sunday night and you're not going to make your meetings the next day, you really want to say, not be on VPN and getting on the network. Clear my calendar. But the intent of that is more than one thing. So now I can let my team know, update the calendar, schedule my time off. It's not a hassle. So going beyond sort of, I'm asking a question, but what's the intent of the goal at the end of what you want to do? And be able to orchestrate that with RPA and things in the background. So the components of it, it's an Intranet Toolbar as we design. It's a left navigational toolbar that accordions out, brings and brings to-nos, to-dos, approvals, and I'll go through sort of the capabilities in just a bit. Also available on mobile, iOS native, and deployable to our internal app store through our mobile device management. And you're not always, as we found, it's sort of like bring it to where the employees are, because you're not always on the web sub-browser. You're not always on mobile. So the desktop notification is there for when you're in business apps like Excel and things like that. You will still see the important notifications come, whether it's an approval or tasks. Yeah. So what we found by taking this approach, we didn't need to replace our existing intranet to bring these capabilities. We seamlessly built a capability that could be integrated with it on the side, which allowed the flexibility for our owners of the intranet to be strategic in making their own decisions going forward and how they modernize that. So when you see it on the intranet, I believe I have some shots here, it looks like it's a part of the intranet, but it's not. It could be on a sales portal, it could be on any other portal as well. And that was a key aspect of the design that allowed us to be pervasive with it and not just, bringing the work to where the employees are. The to-knows section of this is what we call the smart notifications. Here's where we allow for systems to communicate things, whether it be just important information. But it's not like email, so we wanted to not have it be as saturated as email and easier to manage. So what we have done is put algorithms in the back that take into account the contextuality and the priority of where these are at any point in time. So you might get a trip notification a week early, but it doesn't really mean much. But as the trip gets closer, things filter up and bubble up. And unlike email, they expire. So if you get a notification from like a CEO, we got our quarterly results next Thursday at 2, at 3 o'clock, it's over, it's meaningless. So it actually comes out of here without you having to do anything. And it's a mixing of transactions and content too. So think of it more of like your Twitter type feeds where you're getting things you need to do in line with things that you need to know. So you can see some of these are transactional, some are just purely information. We touched on this just a little bit. It's really about managing the priority and not having to have the employee have to do that. Make sure that the right things are at the top. To-dos, this is where you can bring in more task-driven things. So again, I talk about approvals or e-signatures. We have I think on year 2, our our corporate communicators wanted the ability to do polling and things like that. So there's a console in there that allows them to curate their own communications to send them out targeted. So they can do single person based on anything from Outlook exchange groups, office department, any of the attributes within the HR, anything within the profile. So they can send targeted communications and curate their own. And they could also create polling. And there's the analytics that we built in for the polling results. Now these micro apps are a little different from sort of those things coming in as like triggered communications. These are the things that at any point in time an employee would want to see. Tell me what my time off is. Time planner, let me schedule FTO, let me see a cross-team calendar view. My team, people search, how do I connect in there, whether it be Skype or Slack, but be able to find a person and connect. Payslip information, just pointed things that, that were taking a lot of time for our employees to go out and know that we bought an Oracle system and rebranded it this, and I need to know the link. Abstract away from that and make the user experience all the same. So when they go here, there's 10 different systems here, but you wouldn't know it. And this is a little example. It's bleeding now out into the business capabilities, so no longer sort of just a generalized employee. It's open now, so a lot of the IT teams that are close to our business units, whether it be underwriting or claims or sales, are building these and deploying them themselves into this platform. Here's one example of what our HR folks did, because we've been on a journey for workplace flexibility. And with that comes some interesting rules as you cross state borders. So if you're working from home 3 days, now you're in the office 2, but you live in New Hampshire and work in Boston, there's tax implications and they have to account for that. So they just built an app here and sent it out and they get all the information through the, And this is what it's like viewing time off now. And we timed it before and it was about a 2-minute experience. So we count 50,000 employees looking at their time off once or twice a week, times that by 2 minutes, it really starts to build fast on the time savings that are sitting out there. This is an example of the survey where you can curate surveys and send them out. You can target it just like you would any other communication. And the chatbot is the latest thing we've implemented over the last year and a half. we're really trying to bring knowledge management, if you will, into the experience here as the next generation of intelligent search, but not just pointed questions. I know there's a lot of conversation around like, what's the maternity policy and X and Y, Z, but we looked at what the largest searches were on the Intranet and brought those in here, as well as bled it over into our IT help desks, our HR service centers, to take time off the call on both sides. I think there's some examples in here of different examples. You get the knowledge management piece, but it's also integrating with things like reset your password. So don't call the help desk to reset your password, just type it here. Because typically when you call a help desk, the first questions are, who are you, what's your PIN number, what's your office, all the other stuff. But when that data lives behind the scenes in this application, you don't have to ask that question. You literally just say, I need to reset my password. Knows who you are, knows what your passwords are, and allows you to do it. Integrated this with some pretty cool things too with mobile. So we had a lot of people on the corporate devices sort of fat fingering their right, so that they're locked out of their phone. There's another call to the help desk. They can type, and I might show it here a little later, unlock iPhone. And since it knows your corporate device, knows who you are, you're authenticated to this through single sign-on and SAML. Your phone will just unlock just by typing that. So there's a bunch of different, we're really starting to see that it's wide open. And now that we've got sort of this open platform, the ideation that's happening is just fantastic. And those things are coming not from the team that built this, but from the areas that are using it, which is really the cool thing. These are some of the business case models, and at least for a company our size of 50,000 people, and this is continuing to compound. The productivity over investment has just been 10x. And what's coming this year, just to give it a little future, we are starting to really try to get ahead of where work is going and the future of work, and it's not 9 to 5 anymore. I mean, who here works 9 to 5? Right? I mean, you're doing stuff outside the office. It's a very different work environment now in the enterprise. So bringing some of that out of the enterprise where you can access things like Google Assistant and Alexa at home to ask, what's my first meeting tomorrow? Actually, a good one, this example is that our employees gave us was they just want to ask what's on the menu in the caf, because then they can decide whether they bring their lunch or not. It's too late when you're at the office. Right? So we're starting to see some of those things come out and orchestrating that, because through Alexa and working with AWS, you could say, Alexa, ask my hub, and it all goes into the enterprise security level below that. You're not building these things outside of the network, which is nice. Right. And Knowledge Hub. This is more self-service, so no code Knowledge Hub. So let any employee type a question in and put the answer, and let it be self-policed by the employee base. And you'll be surprised how up-to-date your taxonomy is. So if the pointed questions, and allows you to put links out to documents and things like that as well. But allow that to be crowdsourced, and you start to see a real build of the chatbot capability. I think that's it. So that is our journey, and I always would love to hear feedback and any comments, any questions. Those were, yeah, so fortunately for us, we had the teams. My division was focused on software innovation, so we built a proprietary with those teams. And that's just the nature of having, of how we progressed in moving to open source code and building.
Yeah, with your chatbot solution, how much conditioning did you have to do to get it to be effective so that you had those handle time results?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and this goes back to sort of starting off slow. Those pointed questions are fairly straightforward, right? When you start to get into the more complex conversation flows, and I wish I could show it here, but we have the ability to say, like, create a help desk ticket now. And with that comes about 6 following questions. And that takes a little bit of work. And the data's there to always see like which part didn't answer. And then on the sentiment piece of it, as you get further along through there, and it's a struggle, you're getting 3 no's from a user, you can pitch out to the actual help desk. So there is a learning curve, but it's not that bad if you approach it the right way, right? In a simple way, and not try to overcomplicate it for the value you're trying to get. Yep. Okay. Thank you.
assume you guys can hear me okay? Great. So I'm Marsha Nunes. I'm the user experience designer for the Mitre at Work mobile app, which was one of the Silver Award winners this year. As it says in the name of the app, I'm from the Mitre Corporation. We are a nonprofit. We are 60 years old this year, and we work on solving problems for a safer world through our 7 federally funded research and development centers and other partnerships. We have about 8,500 employees. Our biggest concentration is here in the DC area, but we have a large campus up in Massachusetts, where I'm from, and employees working around the country and around the world. So as Rebecca was mentioning earlier, Mitre at Work is not our first award winner, it's actually our 5th. So we're really honored that they recognized us with their inaugural Hall of Fame trophy. That initial winner was a social bookmarking tool based on Delicious, which I don't know if anyone remembers that from back in the day. That one's definitely an idea that's come and gone, but the other ones are still active parts of our intranet, our external social network, our organization pages, and our reporting and analytics service. But I'm here to talk about the one I know best, which is Mitre at Work. So how did this come about? So we have, as I'm sure many of you do at your organizations, an increasingly mobile workforce. About 15% of our employees are either full-time or enough of the week at a sponsor location that they don't have an office back at Mitre. These locations don't necessarily have good network access. They might be secure, so they don't even have their Mitre laptop with them. So they're a little bit disconnected from the rest of the company. And our residents who are at a Mitre site aren't necessarily in their office either. They're moving around to meetings and conference rooms, they're traveling here downtown or to a nearby base to meet with our sponsors, they're flying around the world, or they're simply just trying to, manage their lives, and they're skewing their schedule or working from home around, their family and appointments or just bad traffic. So if you have a corporate issued device, we give you a set of apps so you can get ready access to your email and calendar in our intranet. And those are great, but only about a third of employees have a company-issued device, mostly for financial reasons. So some people are actually totally fine with this. They're happy to not carry a second phone. They're happy to not be quite so available. But there's many, many more employees who've been asking, how can I get more access? What can you do for me on my personal phone? So the challenge has been how to do that. Other companies might do a bring your own device model where they'd let you install that same email and calendar app on your personal phone. But since we do so much work with the government and in areas like healthcare, we have a lot of sensitive data. And some of our sponsors have even written into our contracts that any work for them needs to be done on a corporate device. So another option are remote access tools, and those are great if you're at a sponsor location, you're on your government laptop, you can connect back to Mitre and have that open channel for the day. But they're not really designed for that quick, ready access we've come to expect on our phones. When I later compared Mitre at Work for one feature to these remote access tools, it was like 8 seconds to over a minute to do this one thing. It's like, that's not you can do it, but you gotta be motivated to do it. So generally, this is when we've kind of given up and let this sit. But a couple of years ago, our management was like, no, we really want to try to deliver something for people on personal phones. So we tried looking at the problem from the other direction, and instead of trying to give people everything on a personal phone and then failing to do so, it's like, what useful but low sensitivity functionality can we give them? So we got a bunch of stakeholders together and brainstormed extensively. What can we do? We identified a few starting points, namely our Timecard system and a person lookup. We included our information security folks in those meetings, and we've partnered with them since to make sure that we're keeping our data secure, both in terms of what we include as well as the architecture that we're using. And then we just got to work. By the end of the year, we had a minimal viable product that we released to a small handful of very friendly people. And then over the next few months, we built that up in terms of what it could do and how big that pilot group was until we were ready to release it corporate-wide. We've had over 5,000 employees have installed Mitre at Work. We have versions for both iOS and Android. We knew from earlier surveys that for personal devices at least, people were definitely on both platforms. They're in the public app stores, which makes it really easy for people to get it installed. And because we're just including low sensitivity data, we can put it on people's personal phones. Another great thing with that low sensitivity is we were able to arrange it so you log in once with an RSA token and your PIN and passcode. But once you do that, we keep you logged in for 6 months, which is huge for making this quick and easy to use. Yeah, so we have definitely been reaching our target audience of personal phones, but we found that people with corporate phones are also installing it. They find that for the things that they could do on both, that Mitre at Work is quicker and easier. And one of the best things about this project is just how enthusiastic people have been about it. When we were doing that pilot, every day we were getting more people like emailing us, or they would just try to log in and they'd hit our access whitelist, and they'd be like, how do I get in on this? So a quarter of the pilot participants were just people who just found it through word of mouth from their coworkers. The quote I've got there, I didn't have to dig very hard to find one. Whenever we send out like a new update or a survey, we get lots of people just saying how much they appreciate it and how much it's helped them out. Even just now, I just closed a new survey where we're trying to figure out what to do next, and I think between the time I hit send and got my cup of tea, I had like 400 responses. So people are really excited about what this could do for them. So let me just show you some of the features it has. So as I mentioned before, one of the initial features was our time card system. At Mitre, we're supposed to enter our time on the day it's worked. They take compliance and accuracy very seriously. But if you're traveling and you get home late, you don't want to boot up your laptop and VPN in, and it's like then you're not going to do it, and then you're going to forget, and then your administrator is going to nag you the next morning, and it just kind of sucks up a lot of time. So what we did is we took our big time card table, which has a lot of business logic, and we simplified it down for mobile. There wasn't too much that was sensitive in here. There were some more advanced features like reporting and project lookup, but here it was more just handling all the business logic. So this was one feature we've kind of built up over time. In that very early version, you could just enter time for today, then you could edit time for today. Now you can edit the whole 2-week time period. We can view your absence balances. And we're also, since these are native apps, we're always looking for ways we can integrate with the phone's features. So on your desktop, you'll get an email, and you'll see alerts, say on the home page, saying, hey, you got to fill out your time card. So we can also send you notifications right on the phone in case you're not connected back and seeing those. The other initial feature was our people search. So at Mitre, being able to reach back and find people and expertise is really key to how we work, which is why our internal people profiles are so extensive. In addition to contact information, we've got your schedule, we've got your availability, we have your skills, basically a resume. It goes on and on. There's documents you've recently uploaded. And there's also some data in there that's actually more on the sensitive side, what clearances you have, what projects you're working. So for Mitre at Work, we knew that the clearances and projects, that was definitely right out. But there's also, we just thought we should just focus on like the essentials, like who this person is and how do I get in touch with them. So to take advantage of the phone, you can tap on someone and just call them or text them or email them. And if you call someone all the time, you can click a button and export that stuff to your phone contacts, so it's even quicker to get to it. Our most recent large feature is a calendar. So we have a lot of meetings, which I'm sure a lot of you do too. I got a screenshot of my boss's calendar, which I can never find time on. But we can't give people that calendar app on their personal phones, and even if we tried to streamline out some of the more sensitive information like agendas and attachments, there's still a lot to replicate there. So it's like, what's the key thing for a calendar? So we boiled it down to just enough information to get you where you need to be. The time, the meeting title, the location. We also let you view the upcoming week. So if you want to check, hey, do I have meetings tomorrow, or do I have meetings Monday morning, you can flip out a few days and check that. And if it's a Skype meeting, we also help you join it. So you can tap on those and then choose to either call in and we'll pass through the ID, or you can join via the Skype for Business app and get the audio and the screen if you want to look at it on your little phone. And there's more features. We have My Actions, which is similar to like the Liberty Mutual to-dos, but on a cruder scale. So these are corporate to-dos, like you need to patch your machine, you need to approve this purchase request, you need to take this annual training. So you can't actually address these on the phone, but we do let you know about them. So there's a badge on that item in the bottom nav to let you know that, hey, you've got something there, you can click on it and see basically what it is, so the next time you do log in, you can take care of it. We've got our Wi-Fi key for mobile devices and visitors. We have a key that rotates every week, and this helps you get the key and not have to fat finger it because we'll copy it to the clipboard for you. We thought this would be just like a small, like quick little ad, but people have really liked this, so we're glad we got that in there. And then the last major section is a room finder, so you can type in a room number or browse for things like the coffee stands or the help desk, physical locations to find them on our floor plans. And we also list some other third-party apps you might want to install, like Skype for Business or Tripcase or some of the other training apps and such we have. So, well, overall, this has been, a big success for us. We definitely had some lessons learned along the way. One thing that has kind of stuck with us is just, doing fewer things, but doing them well. Our users have told us repeatedly that, they appreciate that the app is fast and not too cluttered. And at some level, the mobile form factor encourages this because we don't want to hurt the performance. We need to make it fit on the small screen. But we've also tried to apply this to like a higher level of what do we even include in this? And the calendar was a good example of that. Because at that point, the app, was definitely gaining traction, and people were starting to be like, how can this be the hammer for my nail? So everyone was coming to us with feature ideas, and some of them were not really appropriate, but some of them were good, but they were like, we think back to a survey we did of our pilot users where 90% of people told us that calendar was one of their high priorities for what we should add. And it's like, well, that would be nice, and that might be easy, but calendar. People really want the calendar. And it wasn't easy. My developers said that to go through, from the phone all through all our network and security to get the data was like digging to the center of the earth. But we stuck with it and got it out there, and people have really appreciated it. So it's been a good reminder to, try to keep focus on what people really want and could use. These are native apps, and we think that was the right call for us, just in terms of the UX and the ready access and the integration. But that is expensive. We're duplicating functionality that we have already on our intranet that might already be a responsive web app, actually. And then where we're doing iOS and Android, then we're duplicating even more. It's also meant a lot of more testing because we're testing on the two versions, we're testing on different models, we're testing different OS versions. There's some crazy things that will work on an LG and not a Samsung. And then there's also all this user settings, whether it's accessibility settings they're using, or they just have different time zones or formatting. So it's been a lot to account for. But one thing that did save us a little bit of time was using a cloud-based mobile backend as a service. So this let us, this will handle a lot of like the more basic, mundane functionality of getting data from the app back to us, or sending a push notification, or tracking some of our user accounts, which does create another dependency, but it let us save a lot more time and not worry about that kind of functionality, and instead focus on our specific business logic and unique functions. So that is what I have. We're excited to keep building on this, and our users are excited too. So thank you for sticking around through the end of the day. And if you have any questions, I can try to answer them. Or maybe not. Okay. We were like really digging into development in the fall, and by May we had released it to general audience, at least the initial version. And then it's been about another year of increments since then. Yep. No, it's not. We actually have what we use for booking rooms should have its own mobile app, and we keep having trouble with that one. So that was something we had listed in our list of third-party apps, and we've taken it out. The Room Finder's actually it's been good, but it's hard to maintain the data. We have a lot more integration, I think, to do with our facilities to keep that going forward. Yep.
What are some of the additional features that you're planning to implement on the platform moving forward?
Yep, so there's some enhancements we want to do, like we want to a few more of the time card features that we just never got in. People seem really interested in more of the calendar, making that even more available. So there's a few options there, like getting notifications of your meetings, or could we get like a widget on like outside of the app to show you your next meeting. So they want that to be like faster and easier. We've been talking about our custom expense voucher, if we could start letting you submit receipts and purchases to there. There's also Nunes, which is a little bit of a political situation. People are definitely interested in what we call priority news. So like the network is down, Mitre McLean is closed because of snow. People definitely want that kind of stuff. Our more corporate news, people seem less enthused about, so we need to keep working, like how do we sell this and put some cheese sauce on the broccoli of company news so people aren't like, why did you add this to my app? So. Anything else? Yep. Hi.
How are you quantifying benefits?
In a variety of ways. I mean, we're definitely seeing the usage. It's hard because some of it's like very like small increments of time. Like people generally get their time card filled out, but it's like they did it quicker. Their admin didn't have to nag them. Someone else didn't have to nag them. Like they didn't have to waste. So it's like a lot of like small time savings kind of spread around that have been more how we've been selling this. Else? You can get out of here. Thank you.